Alrighty, got a round of 32 match for the championship today between kingsSkort and ipsb. ipsb is the 30th seed. kingsSkort is the 69th seed. Had a notoriously easy path so far, but we'll see if they can keep it up. See what the first kingdom is. All right, so you got some amount of draw with Lost City. Plenty of villages, Lost City and Crown, and not that many terminal action cards to play. Just Animal Fear and maybe a Leprechaun. Trashing, there's Cemetery, plus you can set stuff aside with Grotto, and then also lots of plus buy. Mining Road plus eventually Animal Fair should be enough. And then there's also loots. What's the cursed pile? Lost City being cursed is interesting. So adding a Lost City to your deck on its own is actually net decreasing your deck control, because Lost City net draws you one card, but then it comes with two stop cards. But obviously you can trash the curses again. That does make early Mining Road look potentially good. You get a Mining Road in play and you buy a Lost City, you can play the loot immediately, get 3 money back, and then your Lost Cities are functionally costing 2. There's also some synergy with Quarry here. You play a Quarry and hit 5, you could demand a Lost City or any of the other 5s. Or if you have a plus buy, you can buy them in multiples. What's the best opening here? Quarry Silver, Quarry Grotto. I think I for sure like opening with a Quarry. Most reliable way to get you up to the 5s, which look important here early. Hmm. Definitely want to play with the pair of Grottos. Mining Road plus Crown is also kind of funny. You buy a crown, you leave a treasure in your hand, and then the crown will double play whatever the last treasure is. I think crown looks pretty decent here, in part because I think you want to play a bunch of Lost Cities primarily for the draw. But for one, I'm not sure you really want all the loots you can get, or all the curses you can get for that matter. And for another, you want to draw your opponent fewer cards. And so you wouldn't mind having a mixture of crowns and Lost Cities and then play crown on Lost City to draw. All right, both players go with Grotto Quarry. Looks like kingsSkort has the much better turn 3. Oh, that's not close. So they hit 5 immediately and take Lost City as their first 5. Interesting. ipsb unfortunately lands up their grotto with all their coppers and none of their estates. But it does manage to hit 5 with a quarry in play, so you could demand one of the 5s here. I still think Mining Road looks like a good first 5. Oh, you raise a valid point. I was muted. Uh, I think that all picked up on the recording, so posterity will understand what I said. Anyone listening live was just listening to silence for the last 2 minutes. Okay. Yeah, there's some other matches going on at the moment, so I expect probably be a minute before we get many joiners. Okay, so we got the pair of grottos established already. Still think Mining Road looks like a good next card to buy. Just a Mining Road plus a crown, perhaps. Gonna be thinking about getting a cemetery soon. Oh, Hammer was a phenomenal first loot pull. I'm just now noticing. Did they buy? Okay, so they also went with Lost City for their first $5 buy. Which I mean, if you know Hammer's on top, actually starts to look a lot better. Hammer gaining a cemetery is very. It's like a chapel that comes with 3 money. So that's quite good. I actually, yeah, I concur with this. I was gonna say you don't have quite enough cards in hand to really want to trash four right now, because you also want to set a bunch aside on Grotto. What you can do is you can play Quarry before Hammer. Now all of the fives cost four or less, and then your Hammer can gain you a Crown or a Lost City or what have you, and then draw some more cards, and then line up a better Cemetery Trash on a future turn. So they have a Lost City coming up. So I think demand Crown to crown the Lost City and then buy or gain a mining road off of the hammer. Looks good. Yep. Seems they concur. Oh, also, it's not even relevant whether the Lost City is coming up. I kind of slipped my mind that you get a horse as well. So demand Crown's always going to be a good play because even if you don't have a Lost City in hand, you're always going to have a horse that you can crown for two extra draw. I'm a tad confused. Why did they set aside a copy? Yeah, I don't think that made any sense. If you leave the copper in hand and set aside the estate, you hit five, which lets you demand something. So you get the card, you also get it on top, and you get it with a horse, which is a lot better than whatever you could do with four. Goat, also a very good pull. The loot pile has been quite friendly so far. I think it really matters. They undid the crown play, but I'm pretty sure there's no scenario where you crown anything but one of the draw cards. They also didn't manage to find their grotto. It is a tad unfortunate. This could be a good turn for a double cemetery in that case. So gain one cemetery, trash three estates, a haunted mirror, discard the lurker, and then you can get a ghost. And then you could buy a second cemetery, trashing four more coppers. Looks like, huh? Wait, I'm so confused. Why are you leaving the lurker in hand, but also not gaining a like? You could have just trashed the haunted mirror in place of that copper and gotten a free ghost. I don't know. I don't understand this at all. Why would you not want a free ghost? Pretty good card. I can't explain that. I can't explain that at all. All right, that sequence of buys did not make much sense to me. I think IPSB was certainly in the lead before that, largely on account of the hammer. We'll see if that remains true. I mean, you certainly could deal with it later, but like there's not an upside to not having a ghost in your deck now. There was like they didn't give up on anything at all to gain the ghost in that scenario. You just trash a haunted mirror instead of a copper, and then you get the ghost entirely free. This is for sure a cemetery buy. They set aside four coppers instead of all the more junky of the junk, which signifies that they want to trash it this turn. Don't know about that either. I mean, Leprechaun's fine, but they had a mining road in play. So they could have bought a Lost City, for example, uh, or a crown and crowned the puzzle box and still afforded demand cemetery. All right, so IPSB has a dud. I'm gonna say mostly self-imposed. Obviously, they couldn't control the Grotto bottom deck in the previous turn, but they could have trashed a lot more cards than they did. What are you buying here? Looks like two fives to me, I would think. Uh, you could buy a crown and crown the gold, and then buy a mining road or a lost city. Or you could buy a lost city, and as long as you hit anything aside from endless chalice, you'll get 3 money back, and then you can buy a second thing. I suppose if you wanted a crown and a lost city, which one should you buy first? If you buy the crown, it looks like they're going for crown first. You leave the gold in hand. You buy the crown, you play the gold. You know for sure you're getting 3 money. You'll hit five, and you can buy the lost city. If you buy the lost city, you're playing the lotto a little bit more because you could get like endless chalice and not be able to afford a crown. But I think there's a lot of upside. Like if you hit figurehead, you get an immediate +2 cards. If you hit sword, you attack them. Sextant lets you top deck stuff, and Insignia lets you top deck stuff. Sextant lets you clear off some junk. Hammer lets you gain a thing. So there's scenarios where the Lost City first gives you an upside. I think makes it worth it. They just go for 2 crowns. Okay. So nothing interesting in the trash. This is a dangerous ghost because they bought a leprechaun last turn. You don't particularly want to be playing leprechaun anywhere except for seventh. Gain a gold for a hex is usually not a great exchange, especially in this kingdom where draw is limited and treasure is abundant. Actually, they can fix this problem as long as they buy demand. Demand will top deck another card, and then your ghost will be guaranteed to hit that. I don't think we're playing the lurker, so probably set that aside. So you set aside lurker, copper, estate cemetery, trash a copper, then you still have three, four. You have plenty of money left. So they're going to trash the estate. That's fine too. But why are you leaving the lurker in hand? I suppose if you're buying demand, the math doesn't actually work out any differently. Oh, maybe they're going to buy an animal fair. That's probably what it is. So like demand crown or demand a lost city plus buy an animal fair. That's probably the line here. Does second lurker someday make sense? Right now they're just kind of there to stop the other person from lurking. Neither has ever been played. Uh, I'm gonna say probably not. It's like two lurkers is two stop cards in your deck. So to draw those two extra lurkers, you have to have like two more lost cities, which is a pretty big investment. Uh, the lurker is, I mean, they stop your opponent from doing stuff with lurker, like trashing something one turn and regaining it the next turn. But they also do like it's a card you can discard to get the ghost. It's a card you can trash later to animal fair. I think one lurker had some utility. The balloons is kind of a nasty loot. Alrighty, so we got a bunch of curses, which could be occasion for a cemetery, but probably not. Set aside 4 things on Grotto, plus trash 1 with a goat. You'll probably have them all trashed by the time the game's over. ipsb is kind of low on buys this turn. Like, I don't expect to see the lurker turn into an animal fair here. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that. I was gonna say, oh, playing the lurker and trashing it. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Your opponent just put a lurker in the trash, so now you can start to do things freely. Still doesn't have a ghost. One wonders why. I don't know, just demand crown in a lost city. Why are we undoing the grotto? 2 coppers and 2 curses looked like it made a lot of sense to me. Are they contemplating a cemetery buy? I'm not really sure why you would undo that. We didn't want to trash a crown. We did want a cemetery. Okay. Huh. This is fine, but with a grotto to set aside 4 plus goat to trash 1, I don't think the cemetery was necessary at this juncture. Alrighty. So you could potentially play 1 lost city, then crown, then leprechaun, and you'll have 7 actions in play for both plays of leprechaun and get 2 wishes. It's not obvious to me that this is better than just crowning the mining road, which is a lot of value this turn. Uh, 2 wishes is good. Oh, they made the cardinal error of they used the mining road to play the gold, which would cause there to be more than 7 cards in play, which means they would get hexed. Could there be a win this turn? Suppose you wish for a lost city and you happen to draw into your other wish, then you wish for another lost city. Now that pile is at 2. Curses will be at 2. Crown will be at 3. And then you don't have that many buys, I guess. Animal Fair is still not plus buy yet. So you could buy 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Is there also, I guess whatever loot's you gonna be in the discard pile. Yeah, so you need to pile this out, plus you'd be a bit behind on points from the curses. I'm gonna guess there's probably not a win this turn. Endless Chalice. Not a great loot to get late in the game. You're not going to be drawing as well next turn because this turn had the ghost in play, whereas next turn you both won't have a ghost in play and you will have a ghost in your deck. There's also a bunch of coppers top deck if I'm not mistaken. So probably looking to demand at least something for draw and then take some number of provinces. Hmm. So supposing you set aside the copper, you buy a province, you have 15 left. I'm doing. Assuming some level of greening is good just in case, although IPSB ending it on this turn seems not easy. Yeah, I would take some number of provinces here. Could have just been one, but two is also fine. Look at that haunted mirror. All right, yeah, so we've overdosed a little bit on crowns. I mean, the crowns can still play the gold and the doubloons, so it's not like having three throne rooms in hand, but it's still not what you ideally want to be doing with those crowns. Mm, Just double province, okay. Don't think any of the twos are worth buying here. With a good draw, it should be possible to win this turn. I'm not sure how likely that is. Question that order. Probably lead off with crowning the horse. Because if you can find the mining road, you'd want to play it before wishing for Lost City and get the loop straight into play. Okay, so it takes 5 buys to win here, which we've got. And then how much money? You got a quarry already. You can buy a second quarry for 4, and that will cost reduce all 4 of these by 2 each. So that's net saving you money, but they don't have enough buys to do that because you need one extra buy to buy the quarry plus buy everything else. So that's off the table. But they will get a loot for free buying the lost cities, so that will add an additional extra money. Yeah, I imagine this is easily enough. Need 12 plus 8 is 20. We got 7 plus 9, 16, 18. Yeah, we're overshooting by a decent bit. Set us at a copper? I'm not sure when a copper was set aside. Alrighty, game one to kingsSkort. Now IPSB gets to be player one. What have we got here? Interesting. So we got Old Witch for draw, Town for villages. You can get extra copies of either of those by playing Flagship. Fairy Overpay is a pretty strong draw card, and there's no discard attacks to undo that here. Collection looks like the end goal. Enlarge for trashing, as well as investment or transmute even. Uh, okay. How to open. You get the 5-2 versus the 2-5. Are those any different here? Probably not. I don't think you want a free farrier. It's not obvious. But if you're opening with Old Witch, then farrier is just a thing that you can draw dead, which would be a downside to it. I think I like the Old Witch opening. The other plausible candidate is Enlarge. Both of them do take the free farrier. It's not a unpleasant card to have in your deck later. Like maybe you want an extra buy. It could be a inoffensive target for a flagship. I would just be kind of annoyed if my Old Witch draws my farrier the first time I play it, and then I fail to hit 5 as a result. I think I like Old Witch first on account of both Old Witch and Enlarge are cards you really want to be playing early. But it's easier to see how an Old Witch gets you back around to Enlarge, because you probably hit 5 the turn you play it, and harder to see how an Enlarge gets you to an Old Witch, and then your opponent's curses also further inhibit that. But we'll see which one pans out better. Ooh, with 6 money, I'm pretty tempted to just overpay for Farrier here, and then you see your Old Witch again, and at some point you can get around to adding an Enlarge to the deck. I want to believe that this Farrier was the original Farrier that we bought in the opening. Unfortunately, not quite enough money to do by and large toil Farrier to draw it, and then toil the enlarge to play it. Collection seems wrong to me. Farrier also seems wrong. I think you're either overpaying for Farrier again or you're buying it on large. Are the two reasonable things to do there. Blockade probably now. Is it worth considering blockade over investment last turn for kingsSkort? Lots of good forts. I didn't even notice that they bought a investment. I think the answer is yes. If the terminals collide, you can buy toil to play both of them, and then blockade gains you investments. And then yeah, town and flagship are also good cards here. What do you want here? A flagship and a blockade? No, just the last barrier. If you're gonna take the last barrier, I think it should be blockade plus barrier. I mean, farrier does tend to run fast, but I don't. There was a few cases where I wouldn't have taken the free farrier 1-2 here. That one makes sense because with one left in the pile, you're also denying it to your opponent who might benefit from it next turn. What to do on 8? I don't know, blockade and a flagship. Town and a flagship. I feel like blockade's a good card here. I agree. Uh, Neither of the players want it. Free money. That is a sad number in this kingdom. I think a silver is probably better than nothing. They say no. Fair enough. We take it on 5. Second Old Witch looks good. Could also be collection. Probably don't need 2 enlarges. They just want a flagship. Okay. Enlarge. Nope, just a second collection. Enlarge, please. Look at all these estates you still have. Pretty sure IPFB has all of their estates still. In fact, do they even have crashing? I think both the investment and the enlarge are in kingsSkort's deck. There we go. Toiling the enlarge, crash a failure into a flagship or a blockade, I guess. We still don't have one of those. And then not a whole lot to do with this last 2 money. I think probably you just toil a failure to draw a random card, just because you're looking at most of your good cards right now, so you want to get back around to them. I don't know what those bottom 6 cards are, but they have to be worse. We don't want to. I like toiling the enlarge. Gets it into play for the next turn. Oh, I see. I see. This makes sense. If you're going to toil the failure anyway, then you want to do that first, and then give yourself potentially a better target for the enlarge if you draw something that you'd rather trash. As it turns out, it made no difference in this case. That is true. It doesn't even do nothing. Toil on town nets you a buy to the extent that you care about that. And Toil plus Flagship is a nice synergy. We see that here. Flagship, often one of the biggest problems is just initially getting into play because unlike Throne Room, it doesn't play the action directly. You have to have a second action to play whatever card you want to play after Flagship. With Toil, you can just toil the Flagships, uh, get the money back, and then the Flagship is set up for the following turn. Another Flagship. I still continue to think Silver looks a little bit better than nothing, but it is not unreasonable to pass there. It's a card that has some synergy with investment. More to the point, it's something you can enlarge into a 5 later as needed. And I don't think you have an excess of money. Maybe you do. They're trashing the silver immediately. I would consider a second Old Witch there. Could have drawn that collection with town, right? Yes, but it wouldn't do anything. Once you buy anything, including events, you can no longer play treasures. You have to play all your treasures before you do any buys. So if you buy Toil, draw the collection. It's just sitting in your hand. If you had after the enlarge. Yeah, if there's actions to spare, then they could have done crash the silver, play town for plus card and play the collection. That would make sense, yeah. I don't recall how many actions there were, but if so, then yes. Okay, at this point, it might be a little bit late for blockade, but it is wild to me that that pile is still at 10. Another flagship. That seems dangerous. I'm just looking at the flagship pile and the curse pile. Those are both rather low, like awfully low. The next player to have a real turn here is going to win the game, and they're just really counting on their opponent to dud there. I believe kingsSkort bottom decked their one Old Witch, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, a bit unfortunate, but also kind of their fault because they didn't add one the turn they needed one. This can be a tie. It's just a win, isn't it? You buy two flagships and two curses, and you get 2 points off of it. Yeah, I think that flagship there. No, no, wait, no, what? All right, well, they they've donated the win right back. I expect it'll probably be a win for IPSB here. It's a bigger points deficit, but you do have multiple collections. They're deliberating between the town and the Old Witch. The reason to play the Old Witch first would be in case you wanted to play the town for money. The reason to play the town first would be if that was a flagship down there and you want to flagship the town. It's 10 money for the win or another collection. Oh, for this turn? Yeah, well, so two curses sets them back to 0. Buying two flagships scores them 4 points. How would 10 be a win? Like 4 points plus an estate plus two curses wouldn't do the trick. Oh, the old witch gives out a curse. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So then they get a curse, you get a curse. I guess from their perspective, you don't know if your opponent's going to trash a curse from their hand. I'm not sure if they have any curses in their deck. But if you're at 2, yeah, so 10 would win. Right, well, 10 doesn't reliably win because your opponent might trash a curse when you play the old witch. But 10 could potentially win. Anyways, now they definitely win in hand. Ah, the fountain points. Okay, 1 all. What have we got going on here? They have an awkward kingdom. You got Madman for one shot draw. But then aside from that, there's no villages, no draw. You have Prince, but like, what are you going to Prince? Princing an Oasis isn't going to increase your hand size. Princing Madman, unfortunately, doesn't work the way you would want it to. So it says, if you do return this to the pile, then +1 card. You couldn't Prince a Madman and get +5 cards forever. Mm. So this probably ends up playing more like big money. I think situationally, Hermits look good to have, like a really big turn. I think probably would want a cage here. I would love to set aside a bunch of coppers, which are otherwise hard to deal with the hermit. I don't think you open with the cage though. I think my most natural inclination is double hermit, and provided you get to play both, then gain like one more hermit plus a cage. Then you draw a bunch with your madman, set aside a bunch of coppers on cage, and go from there. Then you pick up some silvers off of your hermits, pickaxe them into loots, and then later you can upgrade those into provinces. I could see hermit silver also being reasonable. Hitting 5 could be nice. Wouldn't mind summoning a hermit or buying an upgrade. But I think my vote is for double hermit. All right, they go for the immediate cage. That could pay off if you draw it in the right hand. But I think you'd much rather set aside coppers than estates here. And there's no way to reliably guarantee that you're lining the cage up with the coppers early. I guess maybe the case in favor of opening with cage is it is a pleasant card to see in the same hand as the hermit if you draw them together. Like double hermit collision would be sad, but hermit cage, you trash an estate, you set aside 2 coppers. That's a fine turn when you weren't going to buy anything otherwise. What they end up doing. So it's double hermit versus hermit cage. What is down there? We didn't regain the hermit. No, we regained one hermit. There's one hermit down there, which we don't want to draw. I have a pretty good number. I think buying something there is probably worth it. Madman is also a very good card. Okay, what are we accomplishing here? I just trash a copper here. There's nothing particularly good to turn the silver into, and pickaxe will deal with that better later. The gladiator. It's summoning a duplicate. The plot thickens. I think just delay the Amphora and buy another upgrade. Looks like the most important card to me. Unfortunately, you couldn't get a Madman here even if you wanted to. You've already gained a thing in the buy phase with pickaxe, even if you bought nothing. The duplicate to me is maybe slightly suggestive of wanting to go for Duchy Duke. And my intuition leans toward provinces here just because there's a bit of synergy between upgrade and loots. But Duchy Duke with duplicate doesn't sound terrible either. So we're just gonna summon all the duplicates, get them all set aside, and then take all the duchies in one turn, maybe is the plan. No treasures in this kingdom for the spell scroll. A little bit too soon for that. I drew the hermit. It's a tad unfortunate. If you know you have a hermit coming up, that actually could be a good scenario for summoning another hermit. You summon hermit this turn, and then next turn you play that hermit, you play the other hermit, you buy nothing, and you got two madmen in your deck. Trash a copper, and then one of these action cards is surely dying. They'd rather trash the hermit. It's going to summon two more duplicates. So I see step one and step two, it seems like. Get all the duplicates, scan all the duchies. Your deck's not going to be very fast to get dukes after that, because you got to get all the duplicates down if you want to do the trick again. But that's probably fine, because if you get all the duchies, you got a big points buff immediately, and then every duke you buy will be worth 8. And so it's okay if you're buying like a duke every turn or so for a while. But we pickaxe the Emperor to get a better loot, and Figurehead is definitely an upgrade. In a kingdom that reliable draw, Figurehead is one of the better loots. Right, we picked the Gladiator. Bet there's another duplicate down there. I would expect probably that kingsSkort pulls the trigger on the duchies next turn. Silly Potter asks, why not buy duchy there? Let's see. So they would have had three duplicates down, and they would have gotten to half the duchies. Well, your opponent's probably not taking more than half the duchies this turn. So I think it's fine to wait one more turn. Prize Goat would have been a nice loot earlier. Here it's got the remaining 5, which looks like an important number. What do you buy here as ipsb? Doesn't look like this deck is quite ready to add duchies yet, but also if you don't do it now, you might not have a chance. Uh, Not really sure what you buy here. You can take 3 duchies, your opponent gets 5. That doesn't sound great. I don't know, maybe you gain a bunch of upgrades or something? Or just taking the duchies immediately. I think it just looks like a bad situation no matter what you do. We bought a single duchy. Hmm. So kingsSkort here looks like they're gonna get 7 duchies. And that should just be the ball game. Although maybe they're having some connection issues. I don't really see the justification for buying exactly one duchy. Maybe they wanted to get these coppers back because their deck was too thin otherwise. Well, while we wait on kingsSkort to fix what I presume is a technical issue, let's take a look at the art in the kingdom. What's the best art here? Duplicate's all right. Duke kind of ugly. Pickaxe, eh. Upgrade's kind of ugly. I feel like the dimensions on this look like they don't make sense. I'm just, I don't know who did the upgrade art, but I'm not convinced that they understand perspective. Prince, eh. Maybe the guy on the right looks a lot better than the guy on the left. Cage, pretty basic. Gladiator, he's got a weird facial expression. Spoilers, I'm not at Oasis yet. Hermit is just profoundly brown. Is this the Jesse J one? It is aesthetically like Jesse J art. Night Watchman. The art's not bad. He's just an ugly dude. Oasis looks nice. Summon. Okay. And Madman, kind of ugly. Yeah, I think the top three contenders are Summon, Oasis, and Duplicate in some order. Probably Oasis first, then Summon, then Duplicate. Final answer. Summon looks worse up close. Hmm, I'm not particularly seeing that. Maybe is the railing on their balcony a little misshapen, perhaps? kingsSkort ever return? As far as I can tell, they haven't sent any messages publicly about problems. All right, well, only one thing to do now. But the loot art. In general, I would say the loot art is probably above average for Dominion standards. And for the most part, it just accurately represents what it's supposed to, which is already a step up. Like, yep, that cup is a cup. The pot is a pot. They're back. Insignia is kind of ugly. Jewels isn't amazing either. I like most of the other ones. Puzzle box looks nice. Aha! So they didn't even know they were disconnected. Anyways, they could have trashed a loot to gain a province here and still afforded 7 duchies. I'm not sure that's actually worth doing, though. Uh, their deck doesn't have all that much money in it, and they do need to hit 5 for Duke in the future. This is a great starting hand here. Duplicate, pickaxe the gladiator, 2 dukes, and the sexton's going to clear off a bunch of duchies, presumably. That is a lot of duchies. Resign incoming? The trouble is, like, this deck isn't really set up to take a bunch of provinces right now, and you need to be taking provinces faster than they're taking the dukes. I'm gonna say upgrade the estate into a silver and then pickaxe one of the duplicates. Anyone know what countries the players are from? I don't think that I do. Based on the time they're playing at, I'm gonna say probably. I was gonna say probably not East Asia, but actually there were a bunch of Japanese players playing shortly before this. Seal is not a particularly good loot, but okay. All right, yeah, that sexton's doing a lot of work. Discard duchy and the redundant duplicates. Buy a silver probably. Night Watchman. Okay, there is just a ton. Do they have two different sextants? Okay, sextant is actually a shockingly good loot for this exact deck that is mostly duchies and duplicates. Okay, 2-1 in favor of kingsSkort going into game four. All right, what do we got here? So we've got one copy of Ghost for a village, and aside from that, the only village would be you could play Procession, double play a Transmogrify, and get two actions out of that. You actually wouldn't lose the Transmogrify. The Transmogrify would set itself aside on the tavern map before it gets trashed. And then Procession would still gain you a 5, because the gaining a 5 isn't actually contingent upon successfully trashing the card. That all being said, I don't think the plan is going to be to line up Procession, Transmogrify, Envoy, Procession, Transmogrify, Envoy consistently. More than just a tax kingdom, this is tax plus lucky coin. The first player to play the lucky coin is going to gain one debt from the silver. Oh, prepare. You were raising a very valid point, Folivora. Never mind, this kingdom's fine. So prepare as a village. That solves all the problems. So I think then the plan is to load up on terminal draw cards, probably mostly Imperial Envoy, and then you play one or two of them, then you prepare your hand, which sets aside a few more, and then that deck should work just fine. And then Lucky Coin will pump it full of treasure pretty efficiently. That sucks. So IPSB doesn't even have a $4 turn in a kingdom where there's some pretty good fours that you'd want to open with if you could. Because their $4 turn, they had to take a debt. And if they didn't play Lucky Coin, then they're still not hitting 4. Uh, Turn 2, they prepared. Setting aside the estate doesn't do anything. Like, you can't play them or anything, but it gets them out of your deck for the next shuffle. So it's just like skipping 2 estates for one shuffle, which is reasonable buy.
I also am just now noticing that their turn one buy was to tax the silver pile. Unfortunately, didn't do what they wanted it to. You'd really want to be doing the same thing to your opponent, like hitting their $4 hand. kingsSkort happens to have. Wait a second. kingsSkort happens to have the lucky coin and the $2 and the $3 hand. They bought a fool anyway? There is no way fool is the best card to open with. And you get transmogrify and remake. I guess they like to embody their cards. I don't understand that. Fool? Fascinating. All right, ipsb has 5. What do you buy here? Unclear. I think I like transmogrify more than remake. Remake's going to gain you a bunch of silvers, which doesn't feel great. It's okay if you trash slower and then you just buy like one cemetery at some point to expedite your trashing, and then you can transmogrify that up into a 5 later. So I think I like transmogrify now. Yeah. All right, let's see what this fool can do. Not sure which boons you're hoping for here. Maybe like Earth's Gift plus one of the money ones, so you could do double fours. Oh, potentially connection problems again over there? I don't think they're contemplating whether to play the fool. Like, there's not enough money to potentially trash the haunted mirror and then also gain a ghost off of it. All right, so we did hit Earth's Gift, but did not find an extra coin. I think 4 plus 4 looked really nice here. Earth's Gift will get you like a transmogrify or something, but they only have 3 money left, which isn't an amazing number here. I suppose you actually maybe the best play there was to discard one of the heirlooms and gain a cemetery, trashing 4 cards. It didn't. I was considering that a second ago, and it didn't look good in the original hand. But if you've drawn an extra estate off the top, the cemetery starts to look a lot better. I think maybe cemetery was the play. Okay, kingsSkort seems convinced that this is a fool kingdom, and I don't think I concur. If you're IPSB, for one thing, I don't think it's a big threat to not play with fool. Fool seems okay at some stage, but not like a card you need to have. But like if IPSB wants a fool, they can just transmogrify an estate into it. You only get the debt from tax if you take it in the buy phase. So it's not like you even stop them from getting the fool. Imperial Envoy, I would expect from IPSB. Wonder what other cards they're considering. I don't think Magnate is going to reliably draw you all that much early on. It's a card I could conceive of adding later. Potentially draws as many as the Envoy without the debt, but also without the plus buy. All right, good turn for prepare. Transmogrify is really going to salvage this turn. 2 money doesn't look very good. You can turn that estate into a silver, buy another 4 cost. Not sure which 4 looks best. Could be one more transmogrify. Wait a second, what am I missing? You didn't want to trash an estate? I don't think I agree with whatever that was. Normally, Lucky Coin looked like a pretty good transmogrify target. Although here it's kind of awkward because I think you do want to keep Lucky Coin around. I like getting all the free silvers, and then you can just spend all your buys on the terminal draw. Given this hand, and given that for some reason they didn't use the transmogrify, I think it probably does seem correct to turn the Lucky Coin into an Imperial Envoy, just because it makes this turn go so much better. And then if you want to add treasures again later, you're going to have to pick up like a tools or something. What are they buying here? Envoy plus prepare, I guess. No, we're trashing a silver into another transmogrify. We want all the transmogrifies, but apparently not for the purposes of trashing estates. What am I missing? Why didn't they just use the transmogrify turn 6? I can't explain that. Discard 3 to gain a gold does not look very good. I mean, that being said, discard all the treasures, you get a gold. If you don't, maybe that's fine. I think you could contemplate taking a gold there. Wait, did I miscount how much money they had? Oh, the haunted mirror. Okay, never. Yeah, so I was thinking they had 4 money. I ignored the haunted mirror set aside. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't take a gold over an Imperial Envoy. I was thinking it was a gold versus one of these fours, and then it looked at least defensible. Hmm. Still think you just click an Imperial Envoy for the time being. The fact that they're playing a few of these makes me think they're thinking of Cemetery. Could also buy tools now, and then tools could gain you more envoys. Would not be unreasonable. Speak of the devil, we got a tools gain here. Will-O-Wisp seems like not a terrible boon to get. It's a card you can set aside with prepare, and that gives you a village effect to work with on the following turn as needed. So we're just going to prepare and buy nothing else. At this point, you kind of just want to get the fool out of your deck. Man, if only we didn't have 3 estates still. Can't afford to prepare for the following turn. River's Gift, okay. Depending on the draw, this could potentially be a good time to get a ghost. We'll see what that envoy draws. So I think the number to hit here is 11. or cemetery plus prepare, trash, estate, haunted mirror, and some coppers. Prepare the envoy, discard the will-o-wisp. Actually, yeah, I still think that's probably correct, although less obvious than I was initially thinking. Because Ghost and Prepare are actually really sad together. You buy Prepare in the buy phase, so it's always going to happen before Ghost, and it's going to set aside the Ghost. But it doesn't actually play the Ghost for you because it only plays the actions and treasures, and then it discards your Ghost, and then you draw back around to it, and you set it aside again, and it just never gets played. So Ghost isn't actually all that great here. I think I would still consider getting it anyway, just because Haunted Mirror costs 0 and Ghost costs 4, and then you could transmogrify the Ghost as needed. But I think it would actually be pretty reasonable to skip Ghost here if you plan on preparing consistently, which you should. Although, I mean, certainly if there was an opportunity earlier in the game to get Ghost, like an early game Ghost could do a lot of work. But once you're at the stage that you're buying Prepare every turn, it starts to look a lot worse. Wait, we passed up on Cemetery for a gold? I don't know about that. I'm not fully convinced. If you find yourself in desperate need of a gold, you could always just like transmogrify one of these Imperial Envoys. Silver into tools. I don't think there's anything in that discard worth playing. It's just the estate and yeah, I think literally just the estate, isn't it? Okay. So we finally got a bunch of estates in hand, a bunch of transmogrifies on the mat. Is it time to trash the estates yet? TBD. So you could do 2 estates into 2 silvers, or you could do 1 silver into a cemetery, trashing a bunch of estates and coppers. And then you could transmogrify the cemetery as well. That might be better. This looks like a potentially good time to get a gold. Turn the cemetery into something, and then either like maybe cemetery into magnate, envoy into gold, just because you really want to make sure that you're hitting 3 money, which with 2 debt means you have to find 5 money. And so I would want to put more treasures into my hand. Nope, we want more transmogrifies. It's still not too late. You could turn this envoy into a gold. I just be a little bit worried about whiffing on pair, and then your next turn is going to be sad. Maybe there's enough money down there for that not to be a concern. Alrighty. Now, important minor interaction here. Definitely don't play the transmogrify because if you're buying prepare, you set aside the transmogrify, you play it at the start of next turn, and you'll get +1 action, which is a village effect. And because prepare plays the transmogrify at the start of turn, you're still in that start of turn window. You could call that transmogrify the same turn and use it immediately. They apparently missed that interaction. I don't think it's going to matter. They're like a million miles ahead right now. But they're missing out on a free extra action there by playing the Transmogrify when they were buying Prepare anyway. I would take a Procession at some point here. I don't think it's necessary or anything, but it just looks like a fun card to play with. Process your Transmogrifies, gain free fives off of them. Process that Fool, get it out of the deck. All right, see, IPSB has just like no money in the deck, which is a problem. 'Cause, like the Envoys are going to draw you plenty of cards. How do they have so few silvers? I guess they've been playing their Lucky Coin consistently, I think, and they've just been transmogrifying all the silvers. Yeah, they've played the Lucky Coin 6 times, but they've trashed 4 of their silvers into a cemetery and 3 transmogrifies. Yeah, this deck is just like mostly transmogrifies now. Which like you gotta be a little bit careful with transmogrify because like sometimes the win condition for the game can just be like get an early points lead and then transmogrify all the provinces into provinces and in the game. But if you are behind in points and all you've got a bunch of transmogrifies, you're not exactly in a good spot. So what are we doing with the 4 transmogrifies on the tavern mat? I guess 1 estate into a silver. That's a double transmogrify into a gold, and then the estate into a tools. Hmm. I'm gonna say estate into silver, transmogrify into tools, imperial envoy into gold. You don't need 2 envoys right now, I don't think, given how thin the deck is. Not sure. I think the realistic answer is that they're a bit too far behind right now for anything to look good. For this next, kingsSkort still has 2 estates somehow, which is shocking. I mean, I guess that's what happened when you open with Fool instead of any of the Trashers. But or even with Fool, they had the opportunity to get a cemetery and they passed it up. There were many opportunities to trash estates this game that both players seemed disinclined to pursue. But I'm currently imagining something like, oh no, they only have the 1 transmogrify. I wanted to believe in like a gain a procession, gain an island, process island, which like transmogrify, if procession plays an island, the island sets itself aside, and so it fails to trash itself. You still get the 2 points at the end of the game, and it sets aside 2 things, so you get like 2 provinces out of your deck, and you gain a 5 cost card. But I don't think they have the gains to get both of those cards this turn. IPSB doing the C3PO. I believe I concur with their assessment. All right, 3-1, I believe. First win for player 2. And I just happened to come in the tax Lucky Coin Kingdom. Clearly the Fool opening was just overpowered. unstoppable. Game number 5. Ooh, Dame Anna on top is always a threat. I mean, here you have Bounty Hunter, so it's probably not a big deal. You don't need Dame Anna for thinning. Marchland looks like it'll be strong because you'll exile your estates rather than trashing them, so they'll still be counting towards the Marchland VP. Probably the end goal, I would think. And then we got Margrave plus Mountain Village is the main draw. Actually, you probably do want some moats because not only is Margrave, but Knights look really annoying any turn that you're getting hit by those. And so probably you want like a bunch of mountain villages and like one or two Margraves and like two or three moats in your deck, just because you're really hoping to top tick a moat any given turn. How to open Bounty Hunter moat? Bounty Hunter silver? For sure, Bounty Hunter. That part's non-negotiable. That'll get you to 5, and then you can add a Margrave. IPSB has the 2/5. Interesting. I'm not sure what you do on the 2/5. Might still be Bounty Hunter moat. You could take Dame Anna, which will trash a lot and could potentially really hurt your opponent if you hit their Bounty Hunter. Although I'd certainly rather exile the estates than trash them all else equal. They don't take the free moat. I think Bounty Hunter moat looked like a reasonable opening even on the 5 too. If they're not buying the moat, it suggests they're going to buy one of the 5s. Probably Anna over Margrave first. Best knight here. Uh, Maybe just Bailey? Most inoffensive knight. Okay, so Dame Anna didn't do a whole lot. I mean, it trashed 2 estates and got the Destry out of their deck, so not an unhappy outcome. The ideal scenario for Dame Anna is trashing the Bounty Hunter before your opponent gets to play it. That would be quite a big deal. Just taking a state here. Yep, and then buy a Margrave. No, we want another villain. I don't know about that. Well, it immediately hits the Bounty Hunter, so presumably just rebuy that now. Alrighty, Moat already doing work. Bailey looks good. Could be Piazza or Mountain Village or whatever else as well. Yeah, I think Bailey is a strong knight. Dame Josephine, not so much. That was a nasty attack. Not primarily because of the silver trash, but because it triggered a shuffle when kingsSkort was otherwise lined up to pick up a Margrave out of the discard with the Mountain Village. Not sure what you buy here. Honestly, maybe just 2 moats. Outpost already. How greedy. Yeah, so potentially. Moat plus Piazza. Moat plus Mountain Village. They go to the Piazza. And then now the Mountain Village. Who's in the lead here? Probably ipsb, I think. Sir Bailey's just eating all the silvers. All right, kind of low on money here. What to do about that? Bounty Hunter on copper will make no money. I don't know what that bottom card is. Last card's an estate. Yeah, that sounds right. You've misled me. It was a copper. Uh, probably exile copper and just buy a silver. There would be some consideration to just leaving the copper and buying a four because in this deck the copper is not necessarily the worst card ever when you're low on money. Okay, so here probably exile the moat and then rebuy it, and then you also get another five. Could be exile silver and conquest. They're just gonna exile the copper. Did not find moat on top. Yeah, Bailey has been doing the work. This one's already looking pretty over. What's on their ban lists? Let's go look. 0%. Frigate, Minion, Smugglers, Clashes, Governor, Wall, Rebuild, Possession, Harsh Winter, Palace, and Monkey. All those seem fair to me. And then 50%, Bridge Patrol, Battlefield, Keep, Castles. Who put Swindler on the dislike list? That is 50% too much Swindler. Familiar, Encampment, Barbarian, War Chest, Invest, Black Market. That's heretical. And Sauna. I could see disliking all those other ones. They have the like list on? I don't think so, right? Yeah, they don't have their like list on. We'll never know which cards they like. Yeah, Black Market's just a fun card in general. Certainly, it can feel frustrating, like your opponent pulls a recruiter turn 3 or something. Uh, but it leads to a lot of interesting interactions. You see more total cards. Plus, it itself has a lot of niche interactions, like playing treasures in the buy phase or in the action phase and stuff. Alrighty, so we got the one moat on top. I just feel like these decks want more moats. Like, even if you're not playing all your moats and you're over terminaled a bit, one moat in your starting hand is functionally like +2 cards because it dodges the Margrave attack on top of the Night Trash. Wait, what just happened? Am I missing something, or did they just voluntarily? They they chose. I'm. Oh, I guess maybe they were uh, to reconstruct the logic. Maybe like, wow, I'm really behind. My best case scenario is like Bailey hits Dame Molly and gets both of them out of the deck, and then it hit a card that wasn't Dame Molly, so they resigned. Somebody is unmuted. Holtz, I believe. All right, what do we got here? No villages. That's awkward. Oh, this looks terrible. A mass plus cultist plus no villages. Holtz, you are unmuted. I can turn on the volume for me at least. I think I solved the problem. Okay. There's Masquerade. Is there any consideration to Masquerade being better? Probably not, right? I suspect the correct play here is just to click Cultist every time you can. I want to believe that there's more to it than that. kingsSkort also believes in the Masquerade. We'll see if that manages to accomplish more. The problem I foresee is just that if you add masquerades, they can collide and then you're sad. Or if you add masquerade and cultists, they can collide and then you're sad. There's an necropolis that maybe you get lucky and find, but that's not guaranteed. Whereas with cultists, you just keep clicking them. Sorry, I'm having a severe allergic reaction to this kingdom. Um, with cultists, you just keep clicking them, and then the deck never goes too poorly because the cultists play the cultists, and then you have a passable deck. Anyways, what were the openings? Double cultist versus double masquerade. All right, it'll be interesting to see if the masquerade pays off. It's like early on, masquerade is trashing a card for you, and cultist is giving a card to them. So they kind of counter each other. But on top of the collision thing, cultist is +2 cards, and it puts a thing in their deck. Masquerade, in order to trash, you have to draw that junk card at least once. So at a minimum, the cultist is like +1 card more than the masquerade, even when they both work out. What do you buy on 7 here? I hate to say it. Maybe courtier actually. I don't know. I was gonna say like the answer could just be cultist and treasures and province is the end. Uh, if you had a courtier and you find it in your starting hand once or twice, courtier revealing a cultist is like 3 coins and an action and a gold because cultist has 3 types. And even if you don't find the cultist in your starting hand, so even if you don't find the courtier in your starting hand, you could also find necropolis, and like necropolis, play a bunch of cultists, draw into the courtier, also get you what you want. See, I think courtier looks like a sensible buy here. I would have considered. I'm not exactly sure what all was down there. But if you hadn't drawn into your courtier and your necropolis yet, there might have been a case. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like at some point they knew they had a necropolis and a cultist on the bottom. They could have stopped. There's no value in drawing these if they're buying. They already had 5 money, so they could have stopped there and known for sure they had an necropolis and a cultist on top. It would have also had 2 coppers on top, so it's not like clearly better, but there's something to it. Yeah, I think just keep clicking cultist. Grass Wonder, how dare you? Yeah, they got a courtier in the deck. They don't need a gold. Alrighty. Presumably actions buys in gold. You're probably going to draw a bunch and then won't need the coins if you don't have buy anyway. Actions buys gold. And a cultist. And I mean, this could just be a province as well. But probably if you're the one with 8 cultists, it behooves you to empty the cultists. And if you're going to empty the cultists, you might as well do that before you start clicking provinces. Nope, they just want the province. This is a phenomenal starting hand. Well, I mean, I guess this cultist could whiff, but their deck is like half cultist almost. But the Necropolis means they can do all of this and then still play the Masquerade at the end of it. I think this is once again actions buys gold. Yep. And then can you find? Nope, we cannot find the Masquerade. That's tragic. Still think Cultist looks better than Province here. Like if you empty the Cultist, that's 10 points from Tower. That has to happen before the game ends. I presume their logic for clicking Province is they're thinking I'll either buy the Cultist when I hit 5 or if I hit 13 or something. Um, oh, Masquerade would be nasty here if we had one. All right, I feel like 2 golds is enough. Actions buys coins maybe looks better. Yep. Has this Masquerade been played yet this game? Yes, they played a Masquerade one time and passed the survivors on turn 7. Ooh, I think they passed over the gold. I probably would have passed over the courtier at that point. Courtier is better for your deck, but gold is better for their deck. Doesn't look like it's going to make much of a difference. Alrighty, game 7. Somebody should alert the matches channel. Did they do, yeah, random player order? In general, the first player alternates, but then for game 7 they re-randomize it, which I think is better than just sticking with the random player order. It would still be random either way, because like who was player 1, game 1 was random, but it's nice not to know. Whereas the other way around is like if you're player 1 in game 1, you know well in advance. Oh, if it ever goes to game seven, I'll be the player one. All right, what do we got here? Well, the dislike list was not enough to keep Sauna at bay. So we got Ghost Town and Fishing Village, plus Sauna and Necropolis for villages. We got Sea Witch and Storyteller for draw, as well as Avento. We got Sauna for trashing, Market for plus buy, War Chest for gains. War Chest looks pretty good here, with a lot of good fives. What's the problem with Sauna? I'm not sure which player dislikes Sauna. It's just on one of their dislike lists. Can kingsSkort pull it off again? I assume that's meant to be off again. In match 7 against a higher rated player. We're not going to talk about that previous match. Yeah, there are some Sonic games where it's just like super centralizing and all you want to do is just hit 4 consistently and then hit 5 consistently and then it's like a very linear game plan and one player just happens to line it up better. I would say that problem seems more acute at like lower levels. Like if you're in the mid 40s, for example, Sauna feels super overpowered because both players just spam it and then it feels like whoever got the most wins. When in reality, often that's not the best game plan. Uh, but even if you play it correctly, there's still going to be some scenarios where like the correct opening is Sauna Silver and then one person lines it up, like Andrews is saying. I can understand how someone would dislike Sauna. It's not a card that particularly irks me. Okay, so what do we got here? Star Chart Fishing Village. That is an interesting opening versus Sauna. I think Sauna Silver looks better. Silver's accomplishing the same thing as Fishing Village early, and then you at least have a chance to trash. Plus, you're going to want Saunas eventually for trashing. They do manage to line up the Sauna and the Silver. Star Chart Fishing Village feels like I wanted to open with Fishing Village anyway. I don't hate the idea. So Fishing Village is like a copper if you find it turn 4, and a silver if you find it turn 3. At least for the purposes of your second shuffle, because you get 1 money immediately, 1 money the next turn. And so a Fishing Village that you can guarantee you find turn 3 is more like a silver. And then if you open with Fishing Village plus Star Chart, you've already got the Star Chart, and then you buy a Sea Witch, you top deck that for turn 5. That's getting you somewhere. Let's see if that's how it panned out. So turn 3, they hit a Ghost Town. Turn 4, they're about to buy a Sea Witch. I think this is going fine. And kingsSkort took Star Chart plus Storyteller. That does seem worse to me. I would definitely expect Storyteller to get gained here. Sea Witch just looks like it's doing more early. ipsb buys a war chest, and all of a sudden I no longer have any conception of what's going on over there. I thought the whole conceit of that opening was to get a Sea Witch and then have it top decked already, ready to go. Because Sea Witch is a card you'd much rather find turn 5 than turn 6. They took a war chest. Playing a bank with a storyteller kind of sad. Yeah, the storyteller playing the bank actually isn't drawing very much. The storyteller would have to play a bunch of other coppers, and then you follow up with the bank in the buy phase for money. I think Sea Witch looks pretty good early. The curses are at least a mild nuisance. Your opponent will be able to get rid of them later, but it slows them down and makes it harder to connect things. And the Sea Witch is just draw plus sifting in a kingdom where the goal early is just to connect your sauna and your silver and stuff. Market feels premature to me. Four money? No, we're still drawing. That was a storyteller. Five money. Hmm. Both players have a war chest? Looks like yes. I still think Sea Witch looks good. The skirmisher suggests they plan on getting a Sea Witch and they're wanting to get in a discard attack along with it. I feel like this war chest on turn 6 was not an unreasonable time to get war chest once you've already got a storyteller and a way to top deck it. I feel like IPSB's war chest was definitely too early. Like if you consider the shuffle that happened right after their war chest, where did they gain it? So they buy the war chest, then they have all of turn 5, all of turn 6, and then they only shuffle the deck for turn 7. Uh, the big benefit of an early star chart, I think, is with stuff that draws or cycles you, that gets you back around to a new shuffle every single turn. So like Sea Witch, for example. You play a Sea Witch, you buy another Sea Witch, you can top deck that Sea Witch because you're going to trigger a shuffle, then you play that Sea Witch, you'll trigger a shuffle, you can top deck the other Sea Witch, and then it just keeps going. Whereas the war chest is slowing you down, and you're not really taking advantage of the early star chart. Is IPSB skipping trashing completely? It would appear that way. Didn't that happen earlier? Was IPSB the one that was incredibly late to enlarges on the Old Witch Enlarge Kingdom? Yeah, there was a kingdom early on in this match where one player just like only clicked the draw and one player only clicked the trashing. And I forget who came out ahead. I think kingsSkort came out ahead in that one. Yeah, that was no, that was IPSB that won that one. It's one where both players tried pretty hard to lose in the end game, and one player succeeded in that endeavor. This is kind of nice. You can play the Sauna, then the Storyteller, then the Silver, and then trash the Overgrown Estate in the action phase so that you can make use of whatever you draw. It's kind of nifty. So probably I would discard Copper plus War Chest and plan to draw back around to it. Do you have enough draw for that? I think you do. No, they're crashing the Overgrown Estate. Yeah, that's true. There's some merit to the Storyteller playing the War Chest because you can also gain something and then potentially play it if we have enough draw for that. A second Sea Witch, I would think. Yeah, for sure, a Sea Witch. Comes with an attack even. Yeah, this is gonna work out. If they can get. Ooh, that was too many cards. You did not need to play that many cards. So remember, they have the star chart, so they only had to draw one card into that shuffle, and then they could top deck the Sea Witch. Guarantee they find that first, and then that would draw them into whatever else was down there. Missed out on buying a thing there. Yeah, Sea Witch is definitely the correct thing to name. To block from War Chest. Top deck Storyteller. Unfortunately, you're going to play the silver before the sauna and not get to trash anything this shuffle either. But still, drawing 6 cards or 5 cards is good. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't think even a ghost town saves the shuffle, right? Get 9 cards down there, they'll see 7 of them. The sauna will draw 1. I think even with a ghost town, they're not triggering a shuffle here, unless I'm missing a card. Yeah, I think this has been over for at least a few turns. Would a second war chest have been greedy? Oh, like right here? No, I don't think so. You definitely could have gained a war chest, drawn around, and played it, and then gain whatever attack you needed to attack them. Why aren't we playing the skirmisher? Am I missing something? It was in the buy phase. Oh, I see. I registered that as them doing the thing where they play the silver with the storyteller. I understand. Wait a second. The plot thickens. I'm back to not understanding. They voluntarily top decked the skirmisher, knowing that they were going to draw it dead. I'm a tad confused by that. I mean, silver's not a bad buy here. It's trashing the sauna and it's draw with storyteller. Getting to the point where bank looks good. They got to be more careful about. They did it again, didn't they? You got to be careful with storyteller. You don't just want to put like all your money into it because if you're overdraw unnecessarily in a card that converts money into draw, means you have less money to work with than you could have. And I'm pretty sure they just overdrew by 2 here, right? Or maybe not. No, I see. They drew exactly as much. So I guess it all worked out fine. Probably it's hard to tell retrospectively. Um, but you want to be careful about drawing too much. All right, this will work fine as long as you don't play the storyteller. This is going to be a little bit underplaying the turn. At this stage, you don't want to play the storyteller because you have 3 money that would just get wasted. But what you could have done earlier is play the storyteller, play the war chest with the storyteller, gain, say, a second war chest, and then draw it and play it immediately this turn. I expect a bank by this turn. 9 money is a little bit awkward for that. But I think just a bank sounds better than anything else. It just makes a ton of money here. I like how Storyteller turns fishing villages into regular villages. Even better than that. Fishing village followed by Storyteller is a regular village that turn. But Fishing Village, the turn afterwards, followed by a Storyteller, is like a lost city. Oh, that's funny. So you could take a death cart, and then it would come with a ruin market if you needed the plus buy. Although maybe let's not recommend DC to kingsSkort, given their earlier connection problems. The graphics are getting a little bit funky there. Okay, so oh no 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 no, you did it again. Once again, storyteller playing war chest would have let you get an advance play of whatever you gain. Like play a war chest, gain a war chest, play that war chest, etc. Or if they name war chest, you could just gain like a market or something for one extra money. Or a death cart for a few extra money and a buy. I think there could be a case made here for platinum over bank at some points, like maybe there. Bank is going to make more money in total. Platinum is a card that you'd be much happier to play with storyteller, so it's not clearly inferior. So IPSB still has the hovel and a bunch of curses. Yeah, the -5 victory points, I think, is saying a lot about the state of IPSB's deck. Okay, there's a war chest down there. We've already played too much money for it to be worth it. Maybe not. How much is in the discard? If you play a storyteller now and play the war chest, all right, we did it. We did it. Progress is possible. And what we wanted from it was a skirmisher. Yeah, I think war chest and death card both look like better gains there. I think I would take a platinum over the bank. You already have more money than you can reasonably use buys for, and platinum just plays a little bit nicer with storyteller at the cost of being a little bit less money in total. Alrighty, IPSB throwing in the towel. And that's the match. Second upset, and the winner will go on to play Person Man for the winner of Rats Division.